Amid swirling snow, Sophia tirelessly prepares a sumptuous dinner for Marcus's surprise guests, her hands steady despite the brewing tension. Eleanor, ever the venomous shadow, corners her in the kitchen, sneering that Sophia is pathetic and needy, unworthy of Marcus's life. Sophia stands tall, demanding Eleanor leave, but the clash erupts, drawing the room's gaze. Marcus bursts in, his face a mask of fury, siding with his mother without a word from Sophia. Blinded by rage and the weight of societal expectations to dominate, he accuses her of drama and humiliation. When she pleads for privacy, he seizes her arm with bruising force, hauling her to the bedroom. There, his wrath explodes. He brands her dead weight, rips her blouse, and hurls her into the freezing night. From the doorway, Eleanor mocks, "Let's see if any beggar will pick you up," as shocked guests look on. Shivering yet unbowed, Sophia refuses tears. She dials Victor with a simple plea, "I need you." 30 minutes later, a majestic fleet of Rolls-Royces arrives in formation, drivers at attention like guardians. Victor envelops her in his coat, and Sophia confronts her tormentors one final time. "Your countdown starts now." She steps into the car, departing with unyielding grace, transforming from victim to avenger. Through vivid storm imagery, biting dialogue, and shifting perspectives, Marcus's fleeting regret and Eleanor's sudden shift to confusion, this moment delivers a powerful twist, igniting Sophia's rebirth and quest for justice. The snow fell relentlessly that fateful winter evening, blanketing the city in a cruel white shroud that muffled all sounds except the howling wind. Sophia stood on the icy sidewalk, her blouse torn and her body trembling from the biting cold that seeped into her bones like a thief in the night. Just moments ago, her billionaire husband, Marcus, had gripped her arm with bruising force, his face twisted in rage, and shoved her out the front door of their opulent home. The door slammed shut behind her with a finality that echoed through the empty street, leaving her exposed to the elements and the stares of any passers-by who might witness her humiliation. His mother, Eleanor, stood framed in the doorway, her lips curled in a smug, venomous smile. "Look at you," she sneered, her voice carrying clearly over the wind. "Let's see if any beggar will even want to pick you up off the street. You were never worthy of our family name or my son's time." The words stung worse than the freezing air, a culmination of months of subtle barbs and outright cruelty that had eroded Sophia's spirit like acid on stone. Guests at the dinner party inside shifted uncomfortably, their whispers a faint buzz through the cracked windows. But no one intervened. Marcus, the man she had loved and supported for years, remained silent, his earlier outburst now hanging between them like an unspoken death sentence. Sophia didn't cry. Instead, a strange calm washed over her as she reached into her pocket with numb fingers and pulled out her phone. She dialed a single number, her voice steady despite the shiver in her breath. "I need you," she said, then hung up. She straightened her posture, lifting her chin against the storm, and waited. Marcus and Eleanor watched from the warmth of the house, confusion flickering across their faces. They had expected begging, tears, perhaps even collapse. But Sophia's eyes held a new fire, one that promised reckoning. 30 minutes later, the low rumble of engines pierced the night, growing louder until a fleet of Rolls-Royce cars emerged from the darkness like phantoms summoned from another world. 15 vehicles in total, their sleek bodies gleaming under the streetlights in shades of midnight black, sterling silver, and deep royal blue. They lined up with military precision, drivers stepping out in unison, standing at attention beside open doors. The spectacle drew curious faces to neighboring windows, turning the quiet residential street into a stage for something extraordinary. Victor emerged from the lead car, his expression a mask of controlled fury. He strode toward Sophia without a glance at the house, removing his overcoat and draping it over her shoulders with gentle care. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice low but edged with steel. She shook her head, touching his arm lightly. "Not anymore." Victor nodded, understanding the depth of her resolve. He had been her confidant for years, the one who knew her secrets, her power, and the sacrifices she had made for a love that had turned toxic. Sophia turned back to face Marcus and Eleanor, who now stood frozen in the doorway, the color draining from their faces. Guests peered over their shoulders, phones raised to capture the unbelievable scene. For the first time, Sophia met their gazes without flinching, her voice cutting through the wind like a blade. "Your countdown starts now." The words were calm, deliberate, a promise of consequences they couldn't yet fathom. She stepped into the waiting car, the door closing with a solid thud that sealed her departure. The motorcade pulled away in perfect formation, leaving Marcus and Eleanor in stunned silence amid the swirling snow. As the cars sped through the city, Sophia leaned back against the leather seat, the warmth enveloping her like a long-forgotten embrace. Victor sat beside her, his presence a steady anchor. "What now?" he asked quietly. "Everything," she replied, her eyes hardening. "But make it clean. No traces." Victor pulled out his phone and began issuing orders, his network of contacts springing into action. This was no impulsive revenge. It was the unleashing of a force Sophia had held back for too long. Flashback to how it all began. Sophia hadn't always been the invisible wife, born to a single mother, Beatrice, who had clawed her way up from poverty through sheer intellect and determination. Sophia learned early the value of strategic silence. Beatrice had built a modest fortune in real estate, teaching her daughter, "Keep some cards hidden, my dear. Not to deceive, but to protect." Sophia took that lesson to heart, excelling in university where she majored in finance and met Victor in an economics debate club. They bonded over late-night discussions on wealth distribution, Victor admiring her sharp mind but stepping back when she fell for Marcus. Marcus was different back then, a passionate architect, sketching dreams on napkins in coffee shops, his eyes alight with ambition, but his pockets empty. Sophia saw potential in him, a raw talent stifled by a lack of opportunity. She used her hidden resources, shell companies and offshore accounts, to open doors for him, arranging meetings with investors without his knowledge. Their courtship was a whirlwind, walks in the park, shared visions of a future built together. When he proposed on a half-finished construction site with a sincere yet straightforward ring, she said yes, ignoring Beatrice's warnings about men who might resent a woman's strength. The early marriage years glowed with promise. They lived in a cramped apartment, but Sophia thrived on the intimacy. By day, she managed her empire from a discreet penthouse office, her wealth multiplying through savvy investments. By night, she supported Marcus, offering subtle advice he attributed to luck. When his first big contract came through, a municipal project that launched his career, Sophia had pulled strings behind the scenes, leveraging connections from her university days. Marcus celebrated with joy, spinning her around in their tiny living room, never knowing the truth. But success changed him. The societal pressure to be the provider, the alpha in a world that valued male dominance, gnawed at Marcus subconsciously. He began dismissing her input at dinners, patting her hand with a condescending smile. "You wouldn't understand the complexities, sweetheart." Sophia swallowed the hurt, telling herself it was stress, that the man she loved was still there. Victor watched from afar, his calls growing more concerned. "You're erasing yourself for him. What if he forgets who built the foundation?" Eleanor's arrival accelerated the decay. Widowed and entitled, she moved into the guest house, secretly owned by Sophia through holdings, and unleashed a torrent of disdain. "This food is barely edible," she'd say at breakfasts, Sophia prepared with care. Marcus, caught between his mother and wife, chose silence. His inaction was a betrayal more profound than words could express. Sophia endured, saving his company from scandals multiple times, but the dismissals piled up like snowdrifts. Now, in the car fleeing that nightmare, Sophia reflected on the turning point. A recent dinner where Eleanor cornered her. "You're dead weight, dear. Marcus has outgrown you." Marcus had witnessed it, yet walked away. That night, Sophia cried alone, flipping through wedding photos and tracing the joy that had faded. The violence tonight, the torn clothes, the shove into the cold, was the final straw, exposing the rot beneath. As the motorcade reached her private medical facility, Sophia stepped out, Victor at her side. Dr. Elena, a college friend, waited, her examination thorough. "Who did this?" she demanded. "Someone who will pay," Sophia said. After the checkup, in her office overlooking the city lights, she and Victor plotted. "Freeze the accounts via audit," she instructed. "Suspend projects on safety grounds. Make it look organic." Victor nodded, aware of the legal risks, potential lawsuits, but Sophia's lawyers were ironclad. The city below sparkled, oblivious to the storm brewing. Sophia touched a photo from university days with Victor, a reminder of untapped paths. Tonight marked her rebirth, from shadow to sovereign. Marcus and Eleanor would soon learn the cost of underestimating a woman who had held their world in her hands. The countdown had indeed begun, and Sophia was ready to claim what was hers. Sophia's life had not always been one of quiet endurance and hidden power. She was born into modest circumstances, the only child of Beatrice, a resilient woman who had risen from poverty through sheer grit and intelligence. Beatrice worked tirelessly in real estate, flipping properties and negotiating deals that built a small but stable fortune. From a young age, Sophia absorbed her mother's lessons like a sponge. Beatrice would sit her down at the kitchen table after long days, her hands calloused from signing contracts, and impart wisdom that would shape Sophia's future. "Keep some cards close to your chest, darling," Beatrice would say, her voice firm yet loving. "Not to trick anyone, but to shield yourself. The world can be unkind to women who show too much too soon." Sophia took those words to heart, excelling in school with a sharp mind for numbers and strategy. She pursued finance in university, where her path first crossed with Victor's. It was in an economics debate club, a room filled with ambitious students debating the merits of wealth distribution and market ethics. Victor, with his thoughtful demeanor and keen insights, stood out. He was the one who challenged her points not with aggression, but with respectful curiosity. During one heated discussion on income inequality, Sophia argued passionately for systemic change, her voice rising above the chatter. Victor countered with data on policy impacts, but afterward, he approached her with a smile. "That was brilliant," he said. "Let's grab coffee and dissect Bennett's theories." Their friendship blossomed over late-night study sessions in the library, surrounded by stacks of books and empty coffee cups. Victor admired Sophia's brilliance, her ability to see patterns in chaos that others missed. He came from a similar background. His parents were immigrants who emphasized education as the key to opportunity. They bonded over shared dreams of building something meaningful, not just for wealth, but for impact. Yet Victor harbored a quiet affection for her, one he never voiced, respecting her independence. Sophia, focused on her goals, saw him as a trusted ally, someone who valued her mind without trying to overshadow it. By graduation, Sophia had already begun laying the foundations of her empire. Using seed money from a scholarship and part-time jobs, she invested in undervalued stocks and properties, creating shell companies to keep her name out of the spotlight. Her approach was meticulous: diversify, anticipate risks, and always have an exit strategy in place. Beatrice watched with pride but caution. "You're building an invisible fortress," she noted one evening over dinner. "Just remember, invisibility can be a strength or a cage, depending on how you use it." Sophia's rise was swift but silent. She managed offshore accounts and real estate holdings that generated wealth beyond what most could imagine. By her mid-20s, she controlled assets in multiple cities, her decisions influencing markets without drawing attention. It was during this time that she met Marcus, the man who would upend her carefully constructed world. He was sketching designs in a bustling coffee shop, his table cluttered with blueprints and a furrowed brow speaking of frustration. Sophia, there for a quick meeting, noticed his pencil roll at her feet. Picking it up, she glanced at his work and pointed out a structural flaw in the support columns. Marcus looked up, surprised but intrigued. They talked for hours, his passion for architecture igniting something in her. He dreamed of creating buildings that told stories, spaces that fostered community. Sophia saw echoes of her own drive in him, but untainted by cynicism. Their dates followed, simple dinners where he shared his visions and she listened, offering subtle insights he later credited to inspiration. Marcus, raised in a traditional family where men were expected to lead, found comfort in her support. He proposed beside an unfinished building site, his hands trembling as he slipped a modest ring on her finger. "I want to build a life with you," he said, his eyes shining with sincerity. Beatrice attended the wedding with a mix of joy and reservation. Pulling Sophia aside amid the celebrations, she whispered her familiar warning. "Love can blind even the wisest," she said, squeezing her daughter's hands. "Keep something back for yourself." Sophia laughed it off, convinced Marcus was different, honest, kind, and seeing her as an equal. The early days of marriage confirmed her belief. They lived, and Sophia balanced her secret empire with domestic bliss. She arranged his first major break, a contract with the city through discreet connections, watching him celebrate without knowing her role in it. However, cracks began to appear as Marcus's success grew. Society's expectations weighed on him. To be the provider and the visionary, he began attributing wins to his genius, dismissing Sophia's suggestions as naive. Victor, now a key partner in her business dealings, voiced concerns during their quarterly meetings. "You're pouring your power into him," he said, his tone laced with worry. "What if he starts believing it's all his?" Sophia waved it away, clinging to the love that had once felt pure. Eleanor's influence loomed larger after she moved in, following supposed home repairs. Her disdain was immediate and cutting. Sophia's cooking was adequate at best, her clothes lacking refinement. Marcus, torn by loyalty to his mother, stayed neutral, his silence eroding their bond. Sophia endured, saving his projects from failures he never saw coming, all while her own holdings expanded. Flash forward to the university days for deeper context. Victor and Sophia's friendship had moments of unspoken tension. One night, after a debate victory, he confessed his admiration. "You're extraordinary," he said. But Sophia, focused on independence, kept it platonic. That restraint defined their bond, mutual respect without demands. Now, reflecting on her origins, Sophia realized her hidden strength stemmed from Beatrice's teachings and Victor's steadfast support. She had built an empire in the shadows, but the storm of betrayal had forced her to step into the light. As she plotted her next moves, she knew the origins of her power would fuel her resurgence, turning pain into purpose. The woman who had risen from nothing would not fall quietly. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee hung in the air of the bustling downtown cafe, a haven for dreamers and doers alike on a crisp autumn afternoon. Sophia had stopped in for a quick break between meetings, her laptop tucked under her arm as she reviewed notes on her latest investment strategy. She was dressed simply in a tailored blouse and jeans, her presence unassuming amid the chatter of patrons. Across the room, Marcus hunched over a table scattered with blueprints, his hair tousled and eyes red from hours of concentration. He was an architect with grand visions but limited means, sketching designs for sustainable urban spaces that could transform communities. His pencil scratched furiously across the paper, only to snap in frustration and roll across the floor, coming to rest at Sophia's feet. She bent down to retrieve it, glancing briefly at the drawing. "Your support columns are misaligned," she said casually, handing it back. "It will fail under load." Marcus looked up, startled, his initial annoyance giving way to curiosity. "How do you know that?" he asked, pushing aside papers to make space. Sophia smiled faintly. "I dabble in structures, metaphorical and literal. Finance teaches you about foundations." What followed was a 3-hour conversation that flowed effortlessly, from architectural integrity to the stories buildings could tell. Marcus spoke passionately about creating spaces that fostered connection, his eyes lighting up as he described eco-friendly designs for low-income neighborhoods. Sophia listened intently, seeing in him a kindred spirit, someone driven not by greed, but by a desire to build something lasting. By the end of their talk, Marcus insisted on buying her dinner, scraping together what little he had. Over plates of pasta at a modest Italian spot, he opened up about his struggles, rejections from firms, funding shortages, and the pressure from his traditional family to succeed as the man of the house. Sophia shared glimpses of her own world, careful not to reveal the full extent of her empire. She spoke of strategic planning, of seeing opportunities where others saw obstacles. Marcus leaned in, captivated. "You're incredible," he said. "Most people see lines on paper. You see the bigger picture." That night marked the beginning of their whirlwind courtship, filled with late walks along the riverfront and shared dreams of a future intertwined. Marcus proposed just 6 months later, on the site of a half-completed community center, which he hoped to redesign one day. Kneeling in the dust, ring in hand, he looked up with genuine emotion. "Sophia, you've made me believe in possibilities again. Will you build this life with me?" Tears welled in her eyes as she said yes, the simple band symbolizing promises of partnership and equality. Beatrice attended the intimate wedding with a mother's pride, but her embrace carried a weight of concern. Later, in a quiet moment away from the guests, she took Sophia's hands. "Love is beautiful, but it can make fools of us all," she whispered. "Remember what I taught you. Hold back a piece of yourself, not as a lie, but as armor." Sophia hugged her tightly, dismissing the advice as overprotectiveness born from Beatrice's own past heartbreaks. "Marcus is different, Mom. He sees me." The honeymoon phase glowed with uncomplicated joy. They settled into a cozy apartment where mornings began with coffee and sketches, and evenings were spent laughing over takeout. Sophia continued managing her vast holdings discreetly, her penthouse office a secret sanctuary where she orchestrated deals worth millions. But she poured her energy into Marcus's career, arranging subtle introductions to key players in the construction world. When his first major bid, a renovation for the city's historic district, came through, it was Sophia's behind-the-scenes maneuvering that sealed it. She had lunched with the deputy mayor, vouching for Marcus's innovative approach through her network. He came home ecstatic, lifting her in a spin. "I did it. My designs won them over." Sophia kissed him, hiding her role to preserve his confidence. Yet, even in those early days, subtle shifts began to emerge. Marcus, influenced by societal norms that praised men as providers, began to internalize his successes as solely his own. At industry events, he networked with growing assurance, sometimes forgetting to introduce Sophia beyond a quick mention as his wife. She brushed it off, focusing on their shared happiness. Victor, ever the watchful friend, called her one evening after a particularly grueling day. "I saw the news about his contract," he said. "Your handiwork?" Sophia chuckled. "Let's keep that between us." Victor paused. "Be careful, Soph. Success can change people. It amplifies what's already there, good or bad." Eleanor's shadow loomed from afar, her phone calls to Marcus laced with expectations. "You need to establish yourself," she advised. "A strong man leads his household." Marcus absorbed it, though he never voiced it outright. Sophia noticed the changes in small ways. A patronizing tone when she offered business advice. A quick change of subject at dinner parties. Still, their love felt real, anchored in the fateful encounter that had sparked it all. Flashback to their first real date. Marcus had taken her to a rooftop overlook, the city lights sprawling below like a canvas of stars. He shared his backstory, growing up in a conservative home where his father emphasized male dominance, leaving Marcus with insecurities about vulnerability. Sophia opened up about Beatrice's influence, her mother's mantra of self-preservation. That night, under the stars, they promised transparency. But promises, Sophia would later learn, could fracture under pressure. As months turned to years, the encounter that had felt destined began to reveal its flaws. Marcus's rising star cast longer shadows on Sophia's sacrifices. Beatrice's words echoed faintly, a warning unheeded. Victor remained a constant, his friendship a reminder of what true equality looked like. The fateful meeting had set the stage for love, but also for the trials that would test its foundations. Sophia, ever the strategist, held her cards close, unaware how soon she would need to play them. Sophia's days blurred into a rhythm of quiet devotion, her empire expanding in the shadows, while she funneled her resources into Marcus's rising career. From her discreet penthouse office, overlooking the city skyline that seemed to bow to her influence, she orchestrated moves that propelled him forward without a trace of her involvement. Marcus's first major triumph came with the Westfield renovation project, a landmark deal that would define urban development in the city. He had pitched his innovative designs to the selection committee with charisma, but it was Sophia who had paved the way. Weeks earlier, she had arranged a private dinner with key council members through her network of shell companies, subtly highlighting Marcus's potential while making it appear as though it was based on pure merit. When the contract was awarded, Marcus burst through the apartment door, whooping with joy. He scooped Sophia up, spinning her until they both laughed breathlessly on the worn couch. "This is it," he exclaimed, his eyes alight with victory. "My perseverance paid off." Sophia smiled, kissing him deeply, her heart swelling with pride, even as a pang of invisibility tugged at her. She had sacrificed a multi-million-dollar acquisition to focus on his bid, reviewing documents late into the night to ensure every detail was flawless. Yet she said nothing, believing true love meant lifting him without seeking credit. In American culture, where self-made success stories were celebrated, she wanted him to feel like the hero of his own narrative. From Marcus's perspective, the wins felt almost too easy, a stroke of luck that fed his growing ego. Deep down, societal pressures gnawed at him, the expectation that a man should stand tall as the provider, unchallenged by a partner's shadow. His father had drilled it into him. Real men build empires with their own hands. Admitting Sophia's help would undermine that, making him feel emasculated in a world quick to judge. He pushed the unease aside, attributing his ascent to talent alone. But as accolades piled up, he began viewing her suggestions with subtle disdain. At dinner one evening, when she offered insights on supply chain logistics drawn from her vast experience, he set down his fork with a sigh. "Sweetheart, these are complex matters. Let's talk about something lighter." The dismissals stung, but Sophia rationalized them as a result of stress from his burgeoning responsibilities. She continued her silent sacrifices, managing her holdings through offshore structures that kept her name hidden. Victor, her steadfast ally from university days, watched with increasing concern. During one of their covert meetings in a quiet cafe, he leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "You're building him a throne and letting him think he carved it himself," he said, his voice laced with frustration. "What happens when he believes he's the king and you're just the servant?" Sophia stirred her coffee slowly, the steam rising like unspoken regrets. "Love requires give and take, Victor. I'm giving, so he can thrive." Victor's worry stemmed from years of partnership. Back in college, they had collaborated on projects where her strategies complemented his execution, creating synergies that impressed professors. He had always seen her as an equal, never diminishing her contributions. Now, seeing her erode her visibility for Marcus pained him. "I've seen you negotiate deals that could topple corporations," he pressed. "Don't let him make you small." Sophia nodded, but her resolve held. She believed in Marcus's core goodness, the man who had proposed with shaking hands and promises of forever. Then came Marcus's health crisis, a severe bout of pneumonia that left him bedridden and delirious. Sophia canceled critical board meetings, ignoring Victor's urgent calls about time-sensitive investments. She sat by his side for days, holding his hand through fevers, reading architectural journals to soothe him when lucid. Greg, her accountant alias in dealings, texted relentlessly. The merger can't wait. But Sophia silenced her phone, choosing her husband's recovery over empire building. When Marcus finally mended, he pulled her close. "I don't know what I'd do without you," he murmured gratefully. Yet even then, a shift occurred. As she tried discussing his upcoming challenges, offering solutions from her expertise, he patted her hand dismissively. "Don't worry your pretty head about it. These are guy things, technical stuff." The comment landed like a subtle blow, but Sophia told herself he was still weak, vulnerable from illness. American ideals of masculinity, amplified by his success, were warping his view. She pushed forward, arranging another pivotal meeting for his next project. Through anonymous channels, she ensured premium suppliers delivered at cost, averting a scandal that could have bankrupted him. Marcus emerged triumphant again, toasting with colleagues over expensive wine she had stocked. He regaled them with tales of his negotiating prowess, while Sophia served quietly, her smile masking the truth. Eleanor's presence exacerbated the fractures. Having moved in under the guise of temporary repairs, she treated Sophia with veiled contempt, critiquing every meal and outfit she wore. Marcus, caught in the crossfire, defaulted to neutrality, his inaction a tacit endorsement. One afternoon, as Sophia prepared an elaborate lunch, Eleanor surveyed the table with a sniff. Adequate for someone without proper training, Sophia bit her tongue, drawing on Beatrice's lessons of strategic patience. Victor's calls grew more insistent. In a rare moment of vulnerability, he confessed over encrypted video. "I fell for you back in school, Soph. Watching this, it kills me, but I respect your choices. Just know you're worth more." Sophia felt a twinge of what-ifs, but loyalty to Marcus prevailed. Her sacrifices mounted, sleep was lost to solving his crises, and opportunities were foregone to bolster his confidence. Yet, the returns diminished. At a gala, Marcus networked brilliantly, his hand gesturing animatedly, but when their paths crossed, he glanced past her as if she were scenery. From Marcus's perspective, the oversight stemmed from pressure, the fear that acknowledging her role would expose his dependencies, which clashed with the self-reliant image society demanded. He loved her, or so he thought, but success bred entitlement. Sophia, sensing the erosion, clung to memories of their fateful encounter, hoping the man she had built up would remember who had laid the bricks. As the silent sacrifices accumulated, like unspoken debts, Sophia's resolve began to crack. Beatrice's words echoed louder. "Hold something back." Victor's warnings loomed. The woman who had given everything wondered how much more she could lose before reclaiming herself. The foundation she had built for Marcus was solid, but her own was starting to tremble. The first signs of decay in Sophia and Marcus's marriage appeared subtly, like cracks in a foundation hidden beneath polished floors. As Marcus's career soared, propelled by Sophia's unseen efforts, he began to view her through a lens distorted by his own insecurities and societal expectations. In American culture, where men were often celebrated as lone wolves conquering the business world, Marcus internalized the need to appear self-sufficient. Admitting his wife's role in his successes would chip away at that image, making him feel lesser in the eyes of peers who prized rugged individualism. He loved Sophia, or at least the version of her that fit neatly into his narrative, the supportive spouse who admired from afar. The turning point came with Eleanor's arrival, an event that amplified the growing contempt like a storm gathering force. She announced her move into the guest house one afternoon, claiming that her own residence needed extensive repairs that would take months to complete. In truth, the space belonged to Sophia through a series of holding companies, a detail Eleanor had never suspected. From the start, Eleanor's presence was a constant drip of disdain, eroding Sophia's patience drop by drop. She treated Sophia not as a family member, but as an intruder in her son's privileged life. Breakfasts became battlegrounds. Sophia, ever the gracious hostess, prepared fresh pastries and fruit arrangements with care, only for Eleanor to pick at them disdainfully. "This is what passes for effort these days," she would say, her tone laced with superiority. Marcus always had peculiar tastes. Marcus, seated at the table scrolling through his phone, barely registered the exchanges. From his perspective, his mother's barbs were harmless quirks, remnants of her own upbringing in a rigid social circle where status was everything. Defending Sophia would mean confronting Eleanor, risking the familial harmony he craved amid his high-stakes career. He asked for the coffee pot instead, his silence a betrayal that cut deeper than words. Sophia held her composure, drawing on Beatrice's teachings of strategic restraint. But the wounds continued to accumulate. The attacks escalated to daily rituals. Eleanor's comments targeted Sophia's clothes, her conversation, even her very existence. "You do try so hard, dear," she said one evening during a hosted dinner for Marcus's partners, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It's almost admirable." The guests shifted uncomfortably, but Marcus changed the subject to his latest project, treating the insult as if it were of no consequence. From Eleanor's viewpoint, Sophia represented a threat. a woman without the breeding she deemed essential for the family name. Her cruelty stemmed from fear that Marcus's choice reflected poorly on her legacy, fear of losing control in a changing world where women like Sophia wielded quiet power. Sophia endured with grace honed from years of boardroom negotiations, but the toll mounted. She continued to offer her silent support, averting disasters that Marcus never saw coming. When a supplier scandal threatened to implode his flagship Westfield project, substandard materials exposed in audits, Sophia sprang into action. She spent sleepless nights activating her network, arranging premium replacements at cost through favors owed from past deals. The crisis resolved seamlessly, and Marcus credited his own savvy negotiations. He hosted a celebratory gathering, raising a glass to his brilliance, while Sophia refilled drinks, her contributions once again invisible. Victor's concern grew palpable. During a discreet lunch in a downtown bistro, he reached across the table, his expression grave. "I've watched you fade, piece by piece," he said. "You solve his problems, build his empire, and he treats you like background noise." Sophia stirred her soup, the steam momentarily blurring her vision. "He's under pressure," she replied, her voice steady but strained. "Success changes people temporarily." Victor shook his head. "Or reveals who they were all along." Their friendship, rooted in mutual respect from university debates, made his words hit hard. He had always valued her intellect, never diminishing her as Marcus now did. The shadow deepened at a charity gala, where Sophia had dressed elegantly in emerald silk, hoping to reconnect with Marcus. He had claimed exhaustion earlier, declining her invitation to accompany him, yet there he was, laughing amid developers, his charisma on full display. When their eyes met across the room, he glanced through her as if she were a stranger. The non-recognition pierced her like a chill wind. Later, near the bar, she touched his arm lightly. "I didn't know you'd come after all." He shrugged, his tone clipped. "Clients mentioned it. Good opportunity." When she asked to join his group, his response was cutting. "These discussions are technical. You'd find them boring." Humiliation burned in her cheeks as he walked away. Victor found her outside, wrapped in the cool night air. "He's blind to what he has," he said softly, offering his arm. They drove to a quiet diner, where over strong coffee, Victor listened as she defended Marcus. "You're making excuses for someone unworthy," he countered gently. "You've sacrificed your visibility for his ego." "When do you stop?" Sophia stared into her cup, the sugar dissolving like her resolve. Beatrice's warning echoed. "Hold something back." The pattern worsened. Marcus brought colleagues home unannounced, expecting Sophia to host flawlessly. She transformed their kitchen into a catering haven, but when she joined conversations on projects she had secretly funded, he suggested she check on dessert. The dismissal relegated her to the periphery in her own home. Alone in the kitchen, she pulled out documents from a hidden drawer, deals worth fortunes, reminding herself of her true power. At a pivotal party, Marcus instructed her to stay unobtrusive. Sophia orchestrated the event impeccably, but he introduced everyone except her. A guest mistook her for catering staff, and Eleanor seized the moment with glee. "Oh, this is Marcus's wife, though I understand the confusion. She blends in so well." Laughter rippled, and Sophia fled to the garden, Victor finding her there. "This isn't love," he said firmly. "It's erasure." Sophia whispered defenses, but doubt crept in. From Marcus's angle, the oversights were unintentional, born from stress and the cultural myth of the self-made man. He rationalized his behavior as protecting her from complexity, unaware that it was contempt in disguise. Sophia, giving her all, felt the shadow lengthening, threatening to engulf her light. The woman who had built empires wondered if saving him required destroying her own. The contempt, once subtle, now loomed large, setting the stage for inevitable confrontation. Winter's grip tightened on the city that fateful evening, the wind howling like a harbinger of chaos as snowflakes danced wildly under the streetlights. Inside their elegant home, Sophia moved with practiced efficiency through the kitchen, preparing for yet another unannounced gathering Marcus had sprung on her. He had called earlier, his tone brusque and expectant, bringing important people over, Handle it. She transformed pantry staples into an impressive spread, timing each dish to perfection, her hands steady despite the growing weight in her chest. The guests arrived in waves, tracking cold air and entitlement into rooms she had polished to a shine. Sophia recognized faces from previous events, developers and partners who nodded politely but looked through her as if she were glass. Marcus held court in the living room, his voice booming with the confidence of a man who believed every victory was his alone. From his perspective, these nights were crucial for networking and establishing his status in a competitive world where men like him were expected to excel. Sophia's role, in his mind, was supportive scenery, not a co-star. He laughed at jokes, slapped backs, and steered conversations toward his latest triumphs, oblivious to her efforts. Eleanor materialized beside Sophia as she arranged drinks on a tray, her perfume cloying and her expression predatory. "You know what fascinates me?" Eleanor roared, ensuring nearby ears caught every word. "How some women cling like vines, thinking longevity equals belonging. It's rather pathetic." Sophia set down the tray with deliberate calm, refusing to engage. But Eleanor pressed closer, blocking her path. "David tells me you've been emotional lately, needy, the kind of thing that drives men away. Honestly, dear, have some pride. Don't hang on to someone who's clearly done with you." The words landed like venom, and something in Sophia snapped. Her eyes met Eleanor's directly, voice low and firm. "You need to leave this kitchen, now." Eleanor's face twisted in outrage. "How dare you speak to me that way in my son's house?" "This is my house," Sophia replied evenly, "and I'm asking you to step aside." The confrontation drew attention, conversations halting as footsteps approached. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face already dark with anger before grasping the whole situation. Eleanor immediately feigned victimhood, hand to her chest. "Marcus, she's been horrible to me, attacked me over a simple comment." Sophia waited for him to seek the truth, to ask her side, but his jaw clenched, eyes narrowing at her. "What is wrong with you?" he demanded, voice rising. "Why do you constantly cause drama when I have colleagues here? Can't I have one peaceful evening without your scenes?" The injustice stole Sophia's breath. She tried explaining, "Your mother has been cruel for weeks," but he cut her off with a sharp gesture. "I don't want excuses, you're embarrassing me." His words echoed in the silent room, guests averting their eyes in discomfort. Sophia's voice trembled slightly. "I want to speak privately." Marcus's expression turned ugly, a mix of rage and something more profound, resentment built from years of unspoken dependency he refused to acknowledge. In American society, where men were conditioned to lead without vulnerability, admitting their influence would shatter their self-image. He grabbed her arm roughly, fingers digging in, and dragged her toward the bedroom. Eleanor's satisfied laughter trailing them. Behind closed doors, his fury erupted. "Who do you think you are?" he shouted, face inches from hers. "Disrespecting my mother in front of my guests? You believe you are entitled to set boundaries." Sophia pulled away, rubbing her arm. "I asked for basic respect." But he wasn't listening, his anger disproportionate, fueled by internal demons. "You've given me nothing," he spat. "You contribute zero to my success, just dead weight I'm tired of carrying." Each accusation twisted like a knife, especially knowing she had architected every pillar of his empire. Sophia started to reveal the truth about the deals, the networks, but the words died. What was the point? He would resent her more. In a blur, he grabbed her blouse, fabric tearing under his grip. He yanked open the door and shoved her into the hallway, past stunned guests, toward the front entrance. Eleanor positioned herself there, eyes gleaming with triumph. Marcus threw open the door to the freezing night and pushed Sophia out, her stumble catching on icy pavement. The cold assaulted her instantly, biting through her torn clothes and stealing her warmth. She turned back, seeing Eleanor in the doorway. "Look at you," the older woman sneered. "Let's see if any beggar will pick you up. You were never worthy." Guests murmured in shock, but no one moved. From Marcus's view, regret flickered briefly. He had gone too far, but pride silenced him. This was about control, about maintaining the facade of strength society demanded. Sophia stood shivering, humiliation complete. but a shift occurred inside her. No more tears. She pulled out her phone with steady hands and dialed Victor. "I need you," she said calmly. Hanging up, she waited, chin high. Marcus and Eleanor watched, confusion replacing smugness. Why wasn't she braking? The rumble of engines grew, headlights piercing the storm. The Rolls-Royce fleet arrived in formation, drivers emerging in sync. Victor stepped out, fury etched on his face, wrapping her in his coat. Sophia faced her tormentors one last time. "Your countdown starts now," she said, voice clear and final. She entered the car, the door closing solidly, the motorcade departing into the night. From Eleanor's perspective, panic set in. This wasn't the end she envisioned. Her cruelty, born from her own insecurities about status and legacy, had backfired. Marcus stared after the vanishing lights, a dawning unease settling. He had unleashed something irreversible, blinded by cultural myths of dominance. Sophia, in the warm car, leaned back as Victor issued quiet commands. The fateful night had shattered illusions, but it had birthed her resolve. No more shadows. The woman who had endured would now reclaim her power. Consequences be damned. The storm outside raged, but inside her, clarity burned bright. The motorcade sliced through the snowy night like a blade through silk, leaving the chaos of the house behind in a blur of receding lights. Sophia sat in the plush interior of the lead Rolls-Royce, Victor's coat draped over her shoulders, providing a cocoon of warmth against the chill that had seeped into her soul. Her torn blouse and bruised arm throbbed faintly, but the physical pain paled compared to the emotional wreckage. Victor sat beside her, his jaw set in quiet rage, glancing at her with concern, but giving her space to process. "Are you ready to talk?" he asked softly, his voice a steady anchor in the storm. "Not yet," Sophia replied, staring out the tinted window at the passing cityscape. The buildings she had influenced through her empire loomed like silent witnesses to her hidden life. Flashback to their university days flooded her mind. Victor and she debating economic theories until dawn, his admiration evident but unspoken. He had confessed once, after a grueling exam, that he saw her as unbreakable. But she had chosen Marcus, drawn to his passion and vulnerability, believing it would forge a true partnership. Now, that choice felt like a self-inflicted wound. Victor had waited patiently, respecting her decisions, even as he watched her diminish. They arrived at a private medical facility, its underground garage shielding them from prying eyes. Dr. Elena, a longtime friend from Sophia's college network, waited with her kit, her expression shifting from professional calm to fury upon seeing Sophia's state. "Who did this?" she demanded, guiding Sophia to an examination room with gentle urgency. "Someone who underestimated me," Sophia said, her voice gaining strength. The checkup was thorough. Bruises were documented with photos, and potential legal evidence was noted. "No broken bones," Elena confirmed, "but these marks will fade more slowly than the emotional scars. Take it easy." Post-examination, wrapped in fresh clothes from the facility's supply, Sophia emerged to find Victor on his phone, his clipped instructions mobilizing resources. He ended the call and met her eyes. "How far?" he asked. Sophia considered, sipping tea prepared just how she liked it, with honey and a sprig of mint. Mercy crossed her mind, the high road of forgiveness preached in American ideals of resilience and grace. But memories of Eleanor's sneers and Marcus's violence drowned out the sound. "Everything," she said firmly, "but legally, no loose ends that could boomerang." Victor nodded, unsurprised. He had seen her orchestrate corporate takeovers with surgical precision. This was personal, but the principles remained the same. They drove to her penthouse office, a fortress of glass and steel, where screens flickered with real-time market data. Sophia settled at her desk, the familiar hum of power reigniting something dormant within her. This space had been her sanctuary, rarely visited during her marriage, as she prioritized Marcus's world. Now, it felt like homecoming. Victor pulled up files on a secondary monitor, outlining risks. Audits could trigger countersuits if not framed as routine compliance. "We'll use independent firms," he suggested. "Make it look like standard oversight." Sophia's first call went to her bank president contact, a man indebted to her for past bailouts. His voice warmed at hearing her until she explained the need. Freeze Marcus's accounts pending irregularity reviews. Consider it initiated, he assured. But Sophia, this could invite scrutiny on your holdings too. She paused, weighing the legal peril. Potential lawsuits for interference, IRS flags on shell companies. Route it through third-party auditors, she instructed. Legitimate concerns only. No vendetta trails. Next, she contacted the Westfield project manager, on her payroll via anonymous investors. Safety violations need to be addressed, she said. Suspend until resolved. He agreed, aware of her influence but not its full extent. Victor handled logistics. His efficiency was born from decades of partnership. Their backstory deepened the moment. In college, Victor had lost a love to similar betrayal, vowing never to diminish a partner. He had waited for Sophia, loving her from afar and respecting her choices, even as they pained him. Tonight, that patience fueled his support. As dawn approached, the first threads of her plan wove together. Sophia touched an old photo on her desk, her and Victor at graduation, smiles full of promise. I never wanted this, she admitted quietly. I loved him enough to hide myself. Victor placed a hand on her shoulder. That's why it hurts, but you're choosing yourself now, and that's strength. From Marcus's view, back at the house, confusion reigned. Guests departed awkwardly, whispering about the spectacle that had just occurred. Eleanor paced, smugness fading to unease. What was that? She demanded. Marcus stared at the empty street, a knot forming in his gut. He had crossed a line, driven by cultural pressures to assert dominance, but regret simmered beneath the surface. Still, pride silenced any immediate apology. Eleanor's perspective shifted too. Her cruelty, rooted in fears of social decline, now felt precarious. Had she pushed too far? The night had exposed fractures in their alliance. Meanwhile, Sophia's awakening burned bright. She made another call, to Beatrice. Mom, you were right, she said. Beatrice's voice softened. Come home if you need to, but I know you'll handle this your own way. Sophia hung up, resolve hardening, no more invisibility. By morning, the initial dominoes had fallen. Accounts were flagged, and projects were paused under the guise of safety concerns. Victor outlined contingencies. Lawyers were prepped for backlash, and evidence of Marcus's mismanagement was subtly fabricated through planted audits. The risks were real. A wrongful termination suit could drag on, exposing her empire. But Sophia was prepared, with an ironclad legal team. This isn't revenge, she told Victor. It's reclamation. From Victor's angle, admiration mixed with long-suppressed affection. He had loved her since their first debate, her intellect sparking something profound within him. Waiting had been torture, but now, in her awakening, he saw the woman he always knew. As they worked through the night, their partnership deepened, hints of something more flickering in shared glances. Sophia's transformation was complete. The fateful night had shattered her illusions, but from the ruins rose a force unchecked. She had given Marcus the world. Now, she would take it back, piece by meticulously planned piece. The awakening wasn't just survival, it was sovereignty reclaimed in a culture that often demanded women dim their light. Sophia would shine, consequences and all, her power no longer silent but resounding. Marcus awoke to the insistent buzzing of his phone, notifications flooding the screen like a digital deluge in the gray light of dawn. His head pounded from the previous night's turmoil, memories of Sophia's departure replaying in fragmented bursts. The torn blouse, the shove into the snow, the fleet of luxury cars vanishing into the storm. Guilt gnawed at him briefly, but he pushed it aside, rationalizing his actions as a necessary assertion of control. In his world, shaped by American ideals of masculine strength and self-reliance, admitting fault would undermine the facade he had built. He reached for his coffee, expecting the day to reset like always. But the first message shattered that illusion. His accountant's voice cracked with panic on the line. All company accounts are frozen. Federal investigators are probing irregularities, including missing funds and unauthorized transfers. It doesn't make sense. Everything was clean yesterday. Marcus's stomach dropped. He checked his banking app, heart racing as red alerts confirmed the lockdown. From his perspective, this was a nightmare glitch, possibly a cyber attack or clerical error. But deep down, doubts crept in. The timing too precise, too devastating. Society had taught him success was earned through grit alone. Questioning otherwise meant facing uncomfortable truths. The crumbles accelerated. By mid-morning, his project manager called. Westfield is shut down. City inspectors cited permit violations and safety issues we passed just last week. Contractors are walking off, claiming they are owed unpaid invoices. Marcus paced his office, the space once buzzing with activity now eerily quiet as staff whispered in corners. He had paid those bills meticulously, or so he thought. Unbeknownst to him, Sophia's orchestrated audits had rerouted funds through legitimate channels, exposing gaps that he had never been aware of. Legal risks loomed in his mind. Could this lead to lawsuits? Bankruptcy? His reputation, painstakingly built, teetered on the brink of collapse. His business partner arrived unannounced, wild-eyed, and accusatory. "You've been coasting on smoke and mirrors," the man snarled, slamming documents on the desk. Every big win came too easily, doors opening like magic. "Now it's clear, you were propped up. Who's behind this?" Marcus defended himself vehemently, but flashbacks assaulted him. Contracts landing unexpectedly, crises resolving overnight. He recalled Sophia's subtle suggestions, dismissed as naive, now seeming prescient. From his perspective, cultural pressures intensified the panic. The fear of appearing weak and dependent on anyone, especially his wife. American lore celebrated the lone entrepreneur. Admitting her role would dismantle that myth. Eleanor's calls added to the frenzy. Her club membership revoked? Anonymous donations with strings attached? She ranted about social exile, but Marcus tuned her out, focused on salvaging his empire. He tried contacting investors, only to find that the lines were disconnected and the emails were bouncing. Lawyers were suddenly unavailable, citing conflicts of interest. The house, symbol of his success, faced foreclosure notices by afternoon. Debts he swore were covered, now exposed as illusions. Sophia's handiwork was thorough, utilizing independent audits to minimize direct traces and avoid potential legal backlash, such as countersuits. Desperation drove Marcus to dig deeper. He pulled old files, poring over photos of ribbon cuttings and celebrations. In the background, Sophia stood quietly, her expression a mix of pride and quiet sorrow that he had never noticed. Flashback to their early days, her picking up his pencil in the cafe, spotting flaws he missed. Had she always been the architect? Societal blinders, expectations that men lead without aid, had kept him oblivious. Regret mingled with resentment. How dare she outshine him, even in secret? Victor's confrontation came late afternoon. He appeared at Marcus's office, bypassing security with ease that hinted at deeper connections. Standing in the doorway, Victor's contempt was palpable. "I watched her erase herself for you," he said coldly. "Built your world brick by brick, and you repaid with violence. Everything you claimed as yours was her gift." Marcus stammered denials, demanding proof, but Victor's words struck home. From Victor's perspective, this was justice long overdue. He had loved Sophia since university. Her brilliance had captivated him during debates on wealth ethics. Waiting had been his silent vow, respecting her choice even as it broke him. Now, seeing Marcus's fall, satisfaction tempered his anger. Marcus demanded to see her, to apologize or confront, but Victor shook his head. "She doesn't want your words. You've lost that right." As Victor left, Marcus slumped in his chair, the office emptying around him. Staff sought new jobs as whispers of scandal spread. His partner initiated dissolution proceedings, citing mismanagement. The first crumbles had become an avalanche. From Eleanor's perspective, isolated in the guesthouse, fear began to set in. Her world of clubs and charities unraveled with similar precision. Evictions, revocations. She blamed Marcus, their bond fracturing under pressure. Cultural norms of family loyalty clashed with her dawning realization. Her cruelty had consequences. Sophia, in her office, monitored the fallout through secure channels. Victor updated her. Accounts frozen, projects halted. Legal safeguards hold, no direct ties to you. Potential suits? Minimal. Audits are independent. Her awakening felt empowering, but bittersweet. Flashback to Beatrice's advice. Hold back for protection. She had ignored it, devoting herself entirely to Marcus. Now, reclaiming triggered no joy, only resolve. Marcus stared at his phone, trying to call Sophia's number, but it was disconnected. Mutual friends dodged his calls, aware of the shift. The man who had everything now. Eleanor's world, once a fortress of social privilege and unyielding superiority, began to unravel with the precision of a well-laid trap. The morning after the fateful night, she awoke in the guest house to the sharp rap of knuckles on her door. Frost etched patterns on the windows, mirroring the cold dread settling in her chest. She opened the door to find a uniformed process server, his expression neutral as he handed her an eviction notice. The document was crisp and official, stating that the property's ownership had been traced through a web of holding companies, and she had 72 hours to vacate the premises. Eleanor's hands trembled as she scanned the pages, her mind racing. "This can't be right," she muttered, her voice rising in indignation. "I've been here for months." However, the server remained unmoved, citing legal protocols and departing without further comment. Eleanor stormed into the main house, waving the papers at Marcus, who was already buried in his own cascade of crises, frozen accounts and halted projects. "This is her doing," she hissed, her face flushed with fury. "That woman is trying to make me homeless out of spite." Marcus glanced up wearily, his eyes hollow from sleepless worry. "She's not just any woman, Mother," he replied quietly, the weight of dawning realization pressing on him. But Eleanor dismissed him, retreating to pack amid growing panic. By afternoon, professional movers arrived unbidden, boxing her belongings with efficient detachment and stacking them on the lawn for all neighbors to see. Her keys no longer fit the locks, changed overnight, and security personnel stood guard, ensuring she took only what was hers. The humiliation was public and absolute. Neighbors peered from behind curtains, whispering about the once haughty woman now loading a rental truck with designer luggage that screamed faded glory. From Eleanor's perspective, this was a nightmare born from her own fears. Raised in a modest home where social climbing was a means of survival, she had married into minor wealth and vowed never to slip back. Her cruelty towards Sophia stemmed from that terror. Seeing in her a reminder of vulnerability, a woman without the polish she deemed essential. Now, exposed and diminished, regret flickered. Had her barbs, meant to protect her son's status, invited this ruin? Cultural norms of family legacy, so prized in her circles, now felt hollow. The blows continued relentlessly. Her country club, a bastion of exclusivity where she had judged others for decades, received an anonymous donation so generous the board could not refuse. Attached was a condition stating that certain members were no longer welcome. Eleanor's lifetime membership was revoked, with clinical efficiency discovered when she arrived for her weekly bridge game, dressed impeccably in outfits that represented her dwindling assets. The manager intercepted her at the entrance, his rehearsed sympathy barely masking satisfaction. "I'm afraid your access has been terminated," he said firmly. "There must be a mistake," Eleanor insisted, her voice quavering. "I've known the founders longer than you've been employed." "No mistake," he replied, gesturing to security. She was escorted through the parking lot, former acquaintances watching from windows with schadenfreude she had once wielded herself. Sitting in her car afterward, Eleanor shook with rage and shame, understanding for the first time the sting Sophia must have felt on that frozen street. The isolation deepened as charity boards followed suit. Each organization she had lorded over received similar windfalls with stipulations, stripping her of positions that had defined her identity. Invitations vanished, lunches canceled with flimsy excuses. Her social network, built on decades of calculated alliances, crumbled like sand. In her tiny new apartment, far from the luxury she had known, Eleanor confronted the wreckage. Surrounded by mismatched belongings in a space that reeked of defeat, she scrolled through old photos of galas and events, her smiles now mocking. From her viewpoint, this downfall exposed the fragility of her armor, arrogance forged from childhood poverty, where belittling others elevated her. She had mistaken Sophia's quiet strength for weakness, projecting her own fears onto a woman who wielded absolute power. Hindsight brought hollowness. Her actions had not protected Marcus but poisoned everything. She called him that evening, voice small and broken. "I'm sorry for it all," she whispered, "the cruelty we inflicted." Apologies rang empty. Marcus, entangled in his own collapse, hung up without response, their bond severed by mutual blame. Cultural expectations of maternal authority clashed with the reality. Her meddling had accelerated their ruin. Victor's visit came unannounced, tracking her through channels she could not fathom. He knocked politely, and when she opened the door to his impeccably dressed figure, instinct urged her to slam it shut. But his expression froze her, cold authority mixed with restraint. "You understand?" She nodded mutely, watching him depart, the threat lingering like smoke. Alone, Eleanor wept for the first time in years, grieving not just losses but the person she had become. Her wickedness, cloaked in propriety, had invited consequences she never anticipated. Meanwhile, Sophia received Victor's report in her office, feeling a void where satisfaction should be. The wicked face consequences not with thunder, but systematic dismantling. Eleanor's empire of influence dissolved, leaving her to confront the poverty of each piece formed a mosaic that pointed to one impossible truth. Sophia, the quiet wife he had dismissed, was the architect of it all. The full weight hit when Marcus cornered Victor outside a high-end restaurant, waiting in the rain for hours until the man emerged. Victor's eyes narrowed at the sight of him, contempt mingling with pity. Marcus, drenched and desperate, blocked his. The doors opened to an office that stole Marcus's breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows. "She built this before we met?" Marcus whispered, sinking.